Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
The missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother has went through a wall, came home, now they can't find her.
Turn it over to another agency.
Chad, where are Lori's kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave. Once I told a lie, and I told my family, I had to keep lying.
What's your, is it deemed?
We haven't cleared anybody.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here for another ATS News live stream. We are covering the Chris Watts case, and we are just going through some mysterious and just strange elements in this case. This is episode, I believe, 15 in the Enigma series that I've started on my channel. And if you'd like to follow any other research that I've done, I've got a whole playlist on my channel as well, right under the Chris Watts case. So before we start off, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't. And let me know, mods, if you can hear me in chat. Hello, Anonymous. I saw Johnny. Jody is cool. I see all you guys here. I was told in some comments that they don't like when I talk to chat, but because this is a live stream and you guys are my supporters, I will always say hi to you when I can. But to kind of appease the replay viewers, I'll keep it minimal. So Sherry, I appreciate you guys all here. And thank you so much, Melanie, for the compliment. So I just wanted to also lay it out there real quick. I do not think that Chris Watts is innocent. I do not think that he deserves a new trial or for this case to be reopened so that he can get out of prison. So that seems to be a misconception that is in a lot of my comments, that just because I think that there's other people involved and that there's corruption and more to this case, that I suddenly am a Chris Watts supporter. That's not the case at all. And it sucks that I even have to put that out there because I've said it numerous times. I do not think he's innocent. I think he's right where he needs to be. Give me 1 second. Okay, anyways. So I just wanted to lay that out there. Also, I do think that there's other people involved. I do think that nobody died in the house. And there's other things that I think that might not be what the mainstream media and what the lying district attorney has told everybody as the truth. So if you're not on board with having an open mind, this might not be the channel or the stream for you, and feel free to exit, because leaving the comments on my channel saying I'm out of my mind and that my theories don't align with the evidence, that's where I have this to say. So let me just share my screen. The reason why I'm sharing this is because what evidence do we actually have in this case? We have no DNA linking Chris to the victims. We have no digital forensics linking Chris to the victims. In fact, his phone has never been released in its entirety, and the security system that could eliminate other people being in the house has been sealed off. Studying the case of Chris Watts presents peculiar complications due to the lack of trial and the plea deal signed by Chris. Special Agent Tammy Lee from CBI said herself, "Whoa, wait, like we're not done. We have all these things to do. We didn't examine all the evidence. We didn't interview every witness we needed to. We didn't do all the things that you do in a normal investigation because he stopped the clock." We were relieved that it was going to be over, but at the same time, we felt like, in a sense, we didn't finish. While trying to comprehend such a complex case, it is important to develop an understanding of Shanann and Chris's background. And since Shanann Watts had such a social media presence, it was easy to start to build a timeline. Examine all. Okay, so I just want to leave this on the screen for those who say the evidence doesn't support your theory that other people are involved. To that, I have, you know, Tammy's own words, CBI agent, special agent Tammy Lee, basically saying we didn't get to examine all the evidence. We didn't get to interview every witness. We didn't do all the things that you do in a normal investigation because the plea deal stopped the clock. So again, for people, and hello, Roxanne, good to see you. For people who say things like the evidence doesn't support your theories, we don't have all the evidence. Find me in anything, any of the documents and anything that has Chris Watts' DNA on the victims. Find me his handprints that are on the victims. Find me the digital forensics that match out the timeline that the district attorney has given us. It's not going to happen. It's not there. So, yes, I might be off on my theories, but to which I have to say, you don't really even know the truth. That's what makes this case so complex and so interesting, in my opinion, to look at. So I know that this kind of triggers people, this case, because obviously it's horrendous, pregnant mother, beautiful children, they had their whole life ahead of them. But you need to understand that not everybody's opinion and perspective is actually going to be the one that is the truth, because until everything's examined, for example, the footprints that were found out at Survey, where the bodies were found, they never told us whose footprints that was. They scanned Chris Watts' footprint, and we have footage of that happening to him when he was in county jail, but they never came out and said the footprints matched Chris. We just don't know that. They did a fingerprint scan, and they scanned only a state scan. They did not do a federal fingerprint scan. So whatever fingerprints they were looking at, we don't really even know whose came back. So I just wanted to lay that out there, because obviously this case is very hard to cover. And my opinion, I know going into this, is not the normal opinion on this case, because I don't follow the mainstream media. I don't follow the district attorney's narrative that has changed numerous times. So that's the other thing that I like to point out, is how many times these people in this case have lied to us. The district attorney, Chris Watts, Nicholkessinger, the co-worker, Troy McCoy, they've all lied, and we've all catch them in a lie. So I just want to lay that out there. And hello, Alex Erickson. It's good to see you. And check out her channel, guys, if you haven't checked it out. It's really good. She covers a lot of different cases as well. So I just wanted to say that to start off, because I feel like people who are like, you're a Chris Watts lover, just because I think there's more to this story doesn't mean I'm a Chris Watts lover. So the other thing I wanted to kind of show right away, give me a second to share my screen. So also people were commenting about how I feel nobody died in the house. And because the cadaver dog never alerted, it showed interest in the basement. They brought in a second dog to kind of confirm the hit. The second dog did not confirm it. So they left it in their notes as, showed interest, but, no hard confirmation. And I keep getting this comment over and over that cadaver dogs can't detect a human body unless it's been there on the ground for an hour and a half. So of course I look into all this stuff, and I've linked my sources in the description box, and you guys are more than welcome to check those out. And one of the reasons why I believe that Shanann was kind of attacked right away is because right down here, as soon as she makes it home, it shows that her phone logged into the Vivint, which is the home security system. This is before Chris shut it off. At the same moment, the Vivint video monitor captured Shanann as she walked up to the home and entered. Nicole Atkinson was captured backing out of the driveway. Between 1:48 a.m. and 4:23 a.m., there was no movement detected on the main floor of the home. And that is because of their Vivint security system, we're assuming was shut off, without the control panel to know that for sure. We can't really say, but there was no movement detected on the main floor. And then it says, in a group text, Nicole Atkinson told Cassie, "We are home." Shanann's phone activity is otherwise dormant until 7:40 in the morning, when Watts sends a staged message pretending not to know where she was. So she gets home, it hooks up to the Wi-Fi, and then her phone shows absolutely no activity. So for someone like me, and I don't know about you guys, once I kind of get comfy and I'm laying in bed, um, I kind of, will fiddle around on my phone. Social media, I'll text, Roxanne, or I'm looking at Instagram. Maybe I'm watching YouTube, and it should show something of Shanann kind of doing the same, you would think. So that's another indication to me that she was attacked either right away, or they, maybe took her phone, shut it off. Not really sure, because they don't really say that her phone was shut off. It just says Shanann's phone activity is otherwise dormant. So for those who say things like the cadaver dog didn't alert because her body wasn't there long enough, well, according to this, it seems like something kind of happened right away. And if Chris doesn't leave till what, 5:15, 5:17 in the morning, he starts loading his truck. If this whole hour and a half theory is accurate, which I don't even think is accurate based on my research, why wouldn't a dog alert to death in the house if she was attacked right away? So just to kind of back that up even more, I can pull up this article. Give me a second. So this one is American Kennel Club. Let's see, where is the part? Okay, dogs are able to pick up a scent within minutes of death or years later. In some studies, they found a 25-year-old skeletonized remains buried in an area 300 by 150 feet. So this is saying within minutes of death, a dog should be able to alert. Obviously, we're not kind of sourcing the skeletal remains info there, but they can smell a dead body through like 10 feet of ice or something crazy like that. So, and then this article, which is linked in the description box, sources a study which kind of talks about cadaver dogs as well. One second. Okay. One of the questions surrounding human cadaver dogs is how soon after death they can recognize a corpse, and how long a fresh corpse must remain in one place for a dog to detect that it has been there. In a study published last year, the forensic pathologist Lars Osterwelg, of course I'm mispronouncing his name, then University of Bern in Switzerland, and colleagues tested the ability of 3 Hamburg state police cadaver dogs to pick out of a lineup of 6 new carpet squares. The one had been exposed for no more than 10 minutes to a recently deceased person. Several squares have been placed beneath a clothed corpse within 3 hours of death, when some organs and many cells of the human body are still functioning. Over the next month, the dogs did hundreds of trials in which they signaled the contaminated square with 98% accuracy, falling to 94% when the square had been in contact with the corpse for only 10 minutes. The research concluded that cadaver dogs were an outstanding tool for crime scene investigation. So again, this is just one study. This is something that I've sourced many places. And I don't know where this hour and a half is coming from that a dog would need, or that a body needs to be there for the dog to detect it. I mean, there's plenty of research out there that shows within minutes, and within less than 10 minutes, the dog should be able to alert. So that's another reason why I don't think anyone died in the house. I think perhaps an altercation took place in the basement, but I just don't think, that something happened down there. So as far as death, I mean, in the house. So you guys can agree or disagree. That's totally fair. I just want you guys to do it in a respectful way. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, you know? So let's see what else. Now, the theory that the children were put in the tanks through the side hatch. That was a working theory that I had for a while. Give me 1 second. It's not something that I 100% was set on. So this is a hydraulic wrench. This is something that mechanics use and also oil operators use. Chris had one on his truck. So what that does is it loosens the bolts through, a mechanism that's not like handheld. So it can be done rather quickly. I've seen a lot of people leave comments like they wouldn't have time to do all these bolts and they had to dig out so that the door could get open. Now, I see what you mean by there being a lot of bolts, and obviously that would be a lot of time. But they only dug this out so that when they opened the door, the oil and the evidence could fall into that little trap that they made. So not every single oil worker has to dig out the door to open it. So I feel like that's something that people are getting a little confused on. The whole purpose that they had that kind of dug out the way it was so that they could catch the evidence. Now, why exactly, if they did put them down in that, wouldn't they just put Shanann in there, right? So that's where I'm feeling like, okay, maybe they were put through the top, Again, I just kind of question things in this case because there's been so many lies and things that they've taken back. So I'm not saying that they put them through the bottom. I'm just saying this theory that they have to dig it out to get the door open is false. And that, people have said things like he didn't have enough time to open all those bolts, but yet these same people are saying that he premeditated and pre-dug that grave another night. So then why wouldn't he have pre-opened this door? And then other people have said, well, oil would have poured out everywhere. We had a petroleum engineer who basically said you can transfer one oil from one tank to the other tank within less than an hour. Also, we had the oil levels in the discovery, but they only gave us the oil levels on the day that they were extracted from the tanks. So the water truck guy showed up on Tuesday and did work on the tanks. And we know that a coworker was at the crime scene before anyone ever found the bodies, and who knows what he did. So again, I'm not saying that that's where they went. And yeah, if you were going to use the bottom door, wouldn't you just put all three through the bottom door? Exactly. That's another reason why it's like, okay, well, I guess that theory doesn't really work unless there's more than one person and they're just, or Shanann was buried and then at a different time the children died. Now we don't have a time of death. So all of this is open for interpretation and actually could be possible because we don't have the time of death. Was Shanann put in the grave and then the girls were held onto for a little bit, and then once she was buried, they weren't going to unbury her or move her from the ground to the tanks? You know what I mean? We just don't really know. But I just wanted to clear that up because it seemed like people were trying to say that's impossible because it would have taken him too much time when, they have those hydraulic wrenches and we just don't know when things kind of were happening as far as, when they were killed. So I'm not saying that I think that that's what happened. I'm just saying that people's theory that, it couldn't have happened, like, you just don't know that because we don't know the time that everything happened. Yeah, different people, different time, different methods would explain that, as well as different levels of familiarity with the site. And it seems like whoever did this is familiar with the oil process and all that. So let's see. So again, I just wanted to clarify that because I keep getting people who are saying he wouldn't have had enough time. That's if you believe the district attorney's timeline that everything happened Monday morning before Nicole Atkinson showed up. We don't have a time of death for anybody. So, were they all dead before he went home and the police were there? Like, you just don't know that. So moving on. Other people have said things like, if you don't understand why Tammy blamed Shanann, then you don't understand police tactics. I definitely understand the read technique, and I've done a lot of research on it. And I've linked a article in the description box that actually goes through the pros and cons of the read technique. The high rate of false confessions, all that is talked about. Again, it's not something that federal agents are even using nowadays. It's very outdated. So I definitely understand why Shanann got dragged into it and blamed by Tammy and then Chris. But I think, also when people say things like, he confessed to killing them all and putting them in the tanks. What more do you want? That's where I say, which confession are you referring to? Because he's had at least 3, and 2 of the 3 were said after he was already in prison. So, and they've changed, they've contradicted each other. So the first confession he makes, some of it is here on the screen. So, as part of, this rule of law, which is whole A19 to 1464, relating to the corpus delicti, of course, this is Latin, so I can't pronounce it, but it's a rule of law and a citation in which a confession to a crime must be accompanied by some other evidence to result in a conviction. So just because Chris said Shanann killed the girls, so I had to kill her, and oh, by the way, I strangled them, that's a problem when the confession is not matching the evidence. And these are things, again, where people get the misconception, like you're sticking up for him, you're defending him. I'm just saying, why is it that the things that he said, when people say he confessed, actually isn't matching the evidence that the medical examiner is telling us, and the FBI is telling us the scene looked like? He said that sheet that was found out at Survey, the one that was the fitted sheet floating around, he said, you'll find the girls' toys and extra clothes under that sheet. They go out there and they look, it's not out there. There's no clothes, there's no toys. Here we have Special Agent Coder and him talking. Special Agent Coder then asked Chris how we could prove Shanann murdered the girls. Chris said, we could examine their bodies and compare the hand marks on their necks. I asked Chris if he was sure they would have hand marks and that they weren't smothered. And Chris said, they shouldn't have been smothered, no. And Bella, I don't know. But Cece, Shanann, was on top of her. Cece and her head was to the side. I asked Chris if he saw Shanann using a pillow on top, and he said no. So here, the confession before he's arrested is that the girls were strangled. And then in prison, I've played on another live stream, he said the same thing, that they would be strangled. Come to find out, they were not strangled. They were smothered. And so again, we go back to he confessed. Why are you questioning things? Well, because the confession isn't matching the evidence. So I don't know about you guys, but I tend to question things. And of course, like Tony said, I have my doubts that Chris even knows what really happened to the girls. That's how I feel. And then of course, like Jody said, now you have YouTubers saying it was Shanann's fault. And that's the other problem with Tammy's read technique. And then she proclaimed on her Facebook that she would never stop fighting for Shanann and the girls and Nico. Right. So no, I'm sorry, guys. This whole comments that you guys leave me over and over, he confessed. What more do you want? I want his confession to actually match what the medical examiner and the FBI and the law enforcement is telling us they found at the scene. That's what I want. So they shouldn't have been smothered. Sounds like firsthand testimony of the person who murdered them. It's hard to know because this is like Coder's notes in the discovery of his interview. Unfortunately, I feel like it's at the point where I have to go through Chris's interviews with Coder and with Tammy with you guys and kind of pause it and pull out things that are being said in it, because it just seems like people aren't really understanding the whole purpose of digging into certain things in this case and how things just don't add up. I also think that some of the stuff is too deep for some people, and that they just want to take whatever the mainstream media took them as truth. And that's just not the way I work personally. So give me a second to kind of share my screen. Let me see if there was anything else I wanted to kind of touch on with that's in the discovery. Okay, so I also wanted to say I appreciate everyone sharing their firsthand experiences with DV. And I'm sorry that people have had to go through some of the stories that they left in my comment section. This is referring to me saying I believe Shanann was sedated, or, something was making her not be able to fight back. And I don't think it's because he wrapped her in a sheet and she couldn't move. I know a lot of people disagreed with that. And I know a lot of people decided to share their stories of, what happened to them with their ex-lover, whatever. And I'm sorry that those things happened. But, for someone to leave a comment saying like, well, lucky for you, you've never been choked out. You don't know the experiences that I've experienced. So don't act like you have. The other thing I'd like to say too is in the Gabby Petito case, we had a clear description of what really happened to her neck injury. It said this is Gabby I'm referring to, strangulation due to throttling. Now, the throttling aspect is like a very aggressive strangulation method and description. And her hyoid bone was broken. And a lot of people who are strangled, that and killed that way you'll see in their autopsies that the hyoid bone is damaged, is broken. For some reason, and this also leads me to believe that she was sedated or drugged or, whatever you want to call it. And she was unable to fight back, is because these, you search the word hyoid in the discovery. This is coming right from Shanann's autopsy. The hyoid bone and thyroid cartilage are intact. The laryngeal mucosa is pink, purple, moist, and smooth. Hyoid bone and thyroid cartilage are intact. The hyoid bone, and it said it over and over on different pages. Burson, who is the medical examiner, advised Shanann's hyoid bone was not broken, although he pointed out bruising to the soft tissue on the right side of the hyoid bone. So again, in my opinion, of course, I'm not an expert, but this kind of leads me to believe that when she was attacked, she didn't put up a fight because she was sedated, and she, these things in her neck weren't compromised, like the thyroid cartilage and her hyoid bone weren't crushed because it didn't take a large and strong force to cut the circulation off. So when Gabby was strangled, her windpipe was broke. So that's how she passed. When Shanann was strangled, none of that stuff in her neck broke. The oxygen level was just cut off to her brain, and then she passed. So both strangulations, but both different methods. And in my opinion, if she was fighting back, if she was stunned, if Chris was on top of her, and he was angry, I mean, his pressure should have bursted or broken these things in her neck. That's my opinion. Other people have said, I think that he put his knees on her elbows and she was unable to move. She doesn't have bruising on her elbows or anything that kind of signify that there was a big force sitting on her. All this stuff you can look in her autopsy, you'll see. It only describes some bruising around her jawline and her neck, but in the inside, it clear as day states that, these cartilage and these bones in her neck and other strangulation cases are broken and are, torn or compromised. Hers is not. So was it a great force and rage and anger on her neck? Or was it she's sedated already? So really a very small amount of pressure was used to kind of cut that circulation and blood flow and oxygen off. That's my opinion. Now, another thing kind of leads me to think that it was a different type of strangulation where she wasn't fighting back for whatever reason is because her eyes. So the petecia in her eyes, those are the red blood vessels that are in your eye. When you drown, when you're strangled, when you're smothered, asphyxiated, even when you're like hung, those blood vessels will fill up with blood, your eyes will turn red and they'll burst. So Shanann's, if you go to her autopsy, her eyes were clear and they were white. There was no petecia in her eyes. They didn't fill with blood. Now, we have Chris, who in the prison interview, when he's asked about that, he says no. And then he's asked again in the prison interview and he says, maybe that's when they filled with blood. And then when he talks to Cadel, the author, and he decides to come up with more confessions, he says her eyes filled with blood. And that was put in the book as a fact. Well, according to her autopsy, no, her eyes never filled with blood. Yeah, I'm so sorry that happened, Beard Freak. She said, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, that her, eyes had bloodshot eyes for weeks. I'm sorry to hear that. So again, I have my theories and people might not agree with them, but I have reasons for those theories. So when the autopsy is saying it looks different than other strangulation cases, I must think that something different was in this case for whatever reason. Now, it says something about her spleen. They had taken stuff from her spleen to bring to the toxicology. And then we have a toxicology report. I don't believe that that's the full report. And it says like on the autopsy, something about getting the results at a later date. Well, they released the discovery after he signs the plea deal. I don't think we got the full report. So, yeah, I think so too, Big Bubba. He said, I believe Shanann was ambushed after being sedated. Yeah, I think it was, she got in, she's looking around for everyone. Yeah, exactly. Not one of his stories have matched the evidence. That's a problem. You need DNA, you need digital forensics to convict someone. We don't have those in this case. That doesn't mean I'm saying he's guilty or innocent. He is guilty. But I believe that there's so much more to this. And I think that there's other people. Yeah, exactly. Burn Dog. We went through that in another live stream. In Shanann's autopsy, it states there was chemicals in her lungs. It was in her blood in the chest cavity that is similar to paint and paint thinner. This could be used to drug her. Exactly. She was made to inhale something, I believe. And yeah, chat is being very supportive of you, Beard Freak. I hope you appreciate our support for whatever you went through. And again, I'm not trying to say people who shared their stories with me, I didn't, take them to heart. It was hard to read some of them, but a lot of people kind of described things that just didn't really match Shanann's case. She just didn't have those bruising on her from being pinned down. Even if she didn't fight back, there's no evidence to show that he pinned her down with the sheet. You know what I mean? Like there must have been something. Chris drugged her before. The whole Oxy debacle, if you believe that, then yeah, that could definitely indicate that it happened again on this night. Chloroform was used to sedate her. I think so. I think something like that. Okay, so let me just get this off the screen since we went through that. Another thing that is just not really matching the crime scene that Chris has said is the description of how he put the kids in the tank. And again, I hate having to go through this because it's horrible, but it just seems like I kind of have to emphasize things he said doesn't match what actually happened. So yeah, Chris is a people pleaser and says what people want to hear. I think also that there's an element to this where the other people who are involved with NK and Chris, we've talked about her contacting her spiritual advisor who had connections to the satanic church. We've talked about the possibility of there being an eco-terrorism group. All this stuff, who knows if it's true, but you can't say it's not true, basically. Did chloroform come up on the toxicology report? So there were drugs in her system that came up. Hang on, let me see if I can find this stuff. We've kind of gone through in other live streams, but she did have it was on a page called, sorry, I'm typing something up. Unusual findings in her autopsy. Hold on. Like I said, that the chest cavity blood had something in it. I can't remember the name of it, but it was like a paint thinner. And then she had N-butanol on. It was mentioned in the her autopsy as well. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, yeah. N-butanol present, chest cavity, blood, head space, chest cavity, and then it gives the, give me a second, I'll show you guys. Okay, page 900 of the discovery. Hang on, guys. Now, I can't explain every little thing because I'm not, an expert, but so this word I can't even pronounce. Ethyl benzene is used as a commercial solvent, fuel additive, and chemical intermediate in the production of styrene. Okay, so yeah, exposure to this compound generally occurs through pulmonary route at air concentrations of 1000 ppm. The compound causes irritation to the eyes and nose. Higher concentrations may result in dizziness and central nervous system depression. This is the one, the paint thinner, toluene, was in her chest cavity blood. We went through that on another live stream. I'm specifically looking for this. Okay, so this, and again, this is under the strange findings of her autopsy. So obviously the medical examiner put this on this page for a reason. N-butanol was in her chest cavity blood. N-butanol is a flammable liquid used as a solvent for fats, waxes, resins, shellac, and varnish. It is also used in the manufacture of lacquers, rayon, and certain detergents. Exposure by inhalation may result in irritation to the mucous membranes, coughing, difficulty breathing, headache, dizziness, and drowsiness. It can be absorbed through the skin, leading to symptoms resembling oral ingestion. Oral ingestion may result in sedation, abdominal pain, nausea, headache, dizziness, and diarrhea. Large doses may affect the liver and kidneys. Acute toxicology is estimated to be 3 times that of ethyl alcohol. So, again, this is cited by the pathologist Burson. What does this mean? I couldn't tell you, but usually autopsies don't have these chemicals in them. So again, could this explain why she didn't fight back? I I think it's possible. I don't see how you could say absolutely not. Again, you have to have an open mind. All right. Oh, interesting. The dogs alerted near paint cans in the basement. I just saw your comment, Mark, about Trent Bolt. Sorry you guys didn't get notified. If you guys hit the thumbs up button right now, if you haven't, that'll kind of push it out in the algorithm too, so that other people who didn't get notified might get the notification now. All right. Oh, wait, no, I'm not sharing this. I'm going to share the other one. So again, going back to his words and his confession that everyone wants to hang their hat on, doesn't match the evidence.
How do you get them in the tanks? The hatch. How do you?
So he's going to describe to her how he got them in the tanks. I definitely think that this was premeditated, for sure. So he's going to describe how he held them by the wrists and he dropped them in feet first. When people say he confessed to putting them in there, what more do you want? I want his confession to actually be sensible. These tanks are 8 inches wide. The girls were wider than that. So holding them by their wrists and dropping them in feet first is impossible. So when people say things like, well, he lied, he put them in the tanks. Yeah, but he lied about how. And it's like, well, if he lied about how, then how do you know he's not lying that he did it? Again, I think he's guilty, but is it possible somebody else disposed of the kids and just told him where they were? I mean, you can't tell me that's impossible. So again, it's one of those things where I'm not saying that this is how it went. But I am saying it's kind of bizarre how he describes how this went down when you just know that that's not how it went down. It wasn't an easy drop. You open the hatch and you drop them in. That's just not how it went. So let's continue with this.
Access that. Walk upstairs. And then what? Okay. So they were saying like you could barely fit an arm through that. How big is it?
I mean, it's like, I mean, you can.
Again, he draws out the size of the hatch on the table and he draws it out way bigger than it is. So once again, we go back to this whole, he describes things that aren't even how it is shown or isn't even how it is. So when he's showing us how big the tank hole is, what would be the point in lying about the size of the hatch? Him making it sound like it's bigger than it is, like what's the point of that lie?
It's like, I mean, you can use that's how we gauge tanks.
So you think it's about like just like a pot or a what's that thing on the ground the street?
Like a manhole?
Like a manhole cover, like is that big? Okay. Was it hard to get them in there? Did you have to push or anything or?
So did you have to push to get them in there? Not really. How? How is that? Yeah, so much for Rain Man. And hello, Jesse. Good to see you. Again, I'm not saying that he's not involved in this crime, but I am saying, is it possible other people disposed of the children? Adrian says, in my opinion, Chris put the kids not in these tanks. What do you mean? And I agree with that, No Mercy. But as far as us figuring out who else is involved, that's where this kind of comes in. Like, yes, he's rotting away in prison. Excellent. I love it. But if there's other people involved in this, then that's unfortunate that they are just, away scot-free. Notice he is drawing a square. Chris first shakes his head no. He's so nonchalant. I know. I think he's trying to downplay the monster he about to me just then. See, that's the thing too, is people will say, well, he's lying about the size because he doesn't want to seem as awful as he seems. But yeah, he's over here eating pizza and other thing, eating his earwax. I mean, I don't know. Could he be trying to cover up for the evil that he really did and he put them in there? Yeah, absolutely. But I just don't feel like what would be the point of that? I mean, he's already caught at this point. I don't feel they were put through the hatch and more than one person was involved, and more than you don't feel more than one person was involved, or you think, there are more involved, but that he didn't put them through the hatch. I don't think Chris did it. Whoever put them through the hatch, I think was somebody else. I think the mistress was involved, but I believe he killed them. He doesn't want to look like the monster he is. And that very well could be true. But at the same time, you guys realize that that's just a perception and an opinion, right? And just like mine is, just like my perception and opinion that he has no idea how they went through the top. I do too, Tony. I knew that's what you meant. Yeah, earwax, Chris. That's just nasty. I know. And again, 2 different tanks Shanann put in the ground. Why didn't he just put the girls in the shallow grave with Shanann? Why wouldn't he just put them both down in one tank? This leads people to believe more tanks, more people. One person's opening up one, the other person's opening up the other hatch, and that's what's happening. I think it's possible. Okay, so my opinion, without being too graphic, it wouldn't be that.
About that. Guys out there who think that hatch is just too small. You think it's about what size? Let's compare it to this plate.
That's about twice the size of that.
Twice the size of this plate? Okay.
So Chris says the hatch is twice the size of the plate. Interesting, because actually it's the same size of the plate, 8 inches. So here we are with this whole, he's just saying a lie so that he doesn't sound like an evil monster. That very well could be true. Or is it he didn't do the disposals? Somebody else did. I mean, you can't say that it's not possible. All I'm saying is it possible Chris doesn't know the size of the hatches or how they went in because he wasn't the one that did it? Yes, he knew where they were. He absolutely labeled that paper. That's where I'll get into that little letter that he wrote in North Carolina for his parents. I do think that he was told where they were personally. I don't think he disposed of the children or killed the children. That's just my opinion. Justice AZ says he has no idea. And that's how I feel. People might think it's no, he's acting, he doesn't want people to know. I think it's more like you're saying, Justice, and he just has no idea. Personally.
Okay. Now it sounds crass, but did you have to kind of squeeze him in to get him down there?
I mean, wouldn't write it. I mean,
Okay.
I don't want to go describe it, but I mean,
Yeah. Feet first or head first?
Feet.
Okay. And then were their arms like this, or were their arms like this? Because you're holding your arms. Okay. All right. So I know we've asked you 1,000 times and you're probably getting sick of it, but we're very, very concerned about how to get those kids out. You can imagine we can't really cut a hole in that tank because the sparks will blow something.
yeah.
So I just want to make very sure that you're 100% sure that they're in there.
Yes.
Okay. One in one, one in the other.
Yes.
Now that doesn't make sense to me. Why would you?
I wasn't thinking at this point, but I was scared out of my mind. I didn't know what to do.
Okay. So you carried one up, put her in. Did you shut it?
It just flashes.
Okay. Oh, it's just a latch.
Yeah.
And then went back down, got the other one, went up the different tower. Is that how it works?
Second staircase. And twice the size of that.
Twice the size of this plate? Okay.
I feel like my face there paused kind of says it all. he's saying the hatch is twice the size of the plate. Actually, it's the same size. Now again, is he a liar and trying to downplay it? You really could say that. And I couldn't tell you guys who think that you're wrong. But I just don't think that that's what it is. I think he literally has no firsthand knowledge of that because he didn't do that part. That's just my opinion. Okay, wait. No, not this page. When it comes to the theory that other people are involved, threaten Chris's life, I started kind of, I know you guys are saying like, threaten his life. It's so hard to kind of share my theories because I know that I'm going to get a bunch of hateful comments, but most of you guys are open-minded and support me. So that's why I keep doing this every week. And plus you guys want me to, you guys ask for it. So I think that there's other people involved. I think that the gunshot that went off before Shanann came home, I think that Nicole Kessinger searching Shanann Watts and his address and Ronnie Watts all the night of their last date together, Saturday, is something. She searched the address, all this stuff that kind of makes it seem like you could interpret it as, I don't know, like, why would she be looking up Ronnie? Was his family threatened? Was he told that they would hurt his family if he didn't follow through with this explosion plan? Again, that's my thing too, is I believe that there was a plan to explode the tanks, and that this was going to turn into a settlement. So when it comes to this letter, now this was left at his parents' house. The district attorney knew nothing about it at sentencing. And when he was asked about it, he had no idea what they were talking about. The defense team had it. This was written before the murders, obviously, and it was left in North Carolina. To whom it may concern, if anyone gets this letter, I would never do anything to hurt myself or my children or my wife. If anything happens to me, please investigate my wife. So this was kind of a mind F for so long for me. What does this note mean? Why did he leave this? Did he really even write this on the 6th of August? And it's taken until now for me to kind of look at this and think like, I think that I got to turn my camera off because I can't even. It's just, I know the things I say kind of sound crazy, but if there's other people involved and they threatened Chris that, if you don't follow through with this, we'll hurt your family. And I mean, extended family. Even to this day, I believe that maybe he's protecting his family while he's in prison from people who were involved in this. I think that this letter, again, Nicole was already the mistress in his life at this point. So if this plan was in place, Nicole's a part of the plan. There's other people who are pulling the strings for Nicole and Chris to follow through with this explosion plan and to kill Shanann. I don't believe that the children were in their plan. I think that the children were collateral damage. But I think that Chris was threatened that they would kill the kids if he didn't follow through with the plan. So I think that this letter, in my interpretation of it, is perhaps Nicole thought if something happens, they're going to look at me because I'm the mistress. They're going to come back to your phone data, to people at work who saw us flirting. It's going to come back to me, and I'm not going to be the one that, gets blamed for this. So I want you to write a note and make it clear that if anything does happen to you guys, it's not going to fall back on me, Nicole. So I feel like this letter could be interpreted as Chris protecting Nicole Kessinger. If the plan fell through and he never went through with the explosion, or he never went through with killing Shanann for this explosion, because if somebody dies in an explosion, obviously that makes the headlines and everything that much more. I think that this is kind of to point things away from Nicole Kessinger. So if something happens to me or my children or my wife, invest, or, I don't know why he even says children or my wife, but it's kind of to say, investigate my wife, not my mistress. So I think the children were threatened think Chris was told, if you don't follow through with this, we're going to kill your children. Um, and he was on board to Shanann going because he had already replaced her. He was done with Shanann 100%, but he wanted to make sure that it didn't fall back on Nicole Kessinger. So he decided to leave this letter so that it would kind of cover the tracks a little bit. Like, no, it wasn't my mistress. Again, if anything happens to me, please investigate my wife. So say he didn't follow through with the plan and they decided to kill Chris. Now he's saying, don't investigate my mistress, go after my wife. If I would never do anything to hurt myself or my children. So if something happens to them, he's saying, don't look at my mistress, investigate my wife. Do you guys see what I'm saying? You are doing the right thing. This entire tragedy affected me. I stopped watching anything and everything about this after I watched the EVPs caught on the body cams. Needs solved legitimately. Well, I appreciate you guys giving me the I don't think there was an explosion, but definitely for Alexis to be set on fire and a mystery. It was all about Anadarko's failure to put cameras at the site. And I think that it's along those lines, like, do I know exactly the plan? No. So when people say things like, well, how exactly would this explosion take place? Guys, you can look up oil tank explosions in oil fields. It happens all the time. It would have been so easy for them to have staged something and been like, wow, this was to blame. But when that didn't happen because Nicole Atkinson shows up, it's just kind of, if things fell apart. Okay, so that Burn Dog, you have to go back through our other live streams. This is fracking. So the tank doesn't necessarily have to explode. It's the underground wells that are attached to the tank. Thank you, Melanie. Oh, thank you. Roxanne appreciates it too. So you have to look up fracking. You have to kind of understand the house explosion that took place. All those I've linked in my description box. So in my description box, you'll find stuff about cadaver dogs, eco-terrorism, and the house explosion. Again, the house wasn't near the tank, but under the ground was a cracked pipe that was attached to the tank, and it creates an explosive gas, which filled the house up, and Anadarko was to blame for that. Now, Chris and other employees talk about in their interviews that after that house explosion took place, they were doing so many safety meetings, and who worked in safety? Nicole Kessinger. So I just think, if you're studying this case, if you don't want to listen to my theories, that's fine. But if you're one of those people that don't know anything about the house explosion or what fracking is, then you're doing yourself a disservice and trying to act like you can't follow other theories. That letter is nuts, makes no sense. NK saved the day. You mean Nicole Atkinson? His plan might have worked better for them. The explosion theory is a good theory. It's so, I wish I could go into the details of it, but we don't really have all night. This I can show you. Just look up fracking on Google, and that'll give you an idea. And by the way, this was a very politically charged conversation at the time in Colorado. A lot of people were against fracking because of the dangers, that house exploding for one. And a lot of people who are hippies or environmentalists Geologists. Who do we know who studied geology? Leave Jim alone and Nicholkessinger. A lot of those people do not like fracking. So that's where this whole eco-terrorism theory comes into play. Would they just not be on board with it because of the dangers and the destruction to the environment? I think it's possible. I don't want to go through this today. I think we'll go through this another day because that's another deep conversation. We're already at an hour mark. What's this? Okay. This kind of, in my opinion, leads me to think that, maybe there were people who were threatening him and his family. And again, I'm not saying that he's not involved. I think that he signed up for something with people who were just awful people. And he makes numerous comments about being scared Monday night and how he had to sleep with all the lights on and all this stuff. Teacup believes the explosion theory. It's deep. It's definitely, for people who study this case that don't know about the oil leak. I mean, like I said, you're doing yourself a disservice by not exploring that, because the leak is key in all this, I think. So this is interesting. And I think that, again, who knows what it means, but in my opinion, it could also indicate there was other people that were kind of threatening Chris as soon as this plan was falling apart and he didn't follow through with the explosion. On Tuesday, August 13th, 2018, Nicole asked Chris multiple times where his family was. He said he did not know, they were not home. Chris said he had a friend named Dave, who is a policeman. Chris said he called Dave and asked him to sit outside his house, and he agreed to do so. So why Tuesday, why is Chris having a friend? See, this is strange. It says Tuesday, August 13th. Monday was August 13th. So just another mistake, I guess, in the discovery, because there's a ton of them. This is written by Kevin Kovac, so that explains it. So I don't know. I guess Monday night, I don't know if we're supposed to go by the date or by the day. But maybe Tuesday, like past midnight? Anyways, why would Chris call his policeman friend and ask his friend to sit outside and his friend agreed to do so? I'm curious your guys' thoughts on that, because I take it as there was outside people who were pissed that this plan didn't go through. And maybe Chris had known, because going back to that letter, if something happens to me, I would never do anything to hurt myself or my kids. Say somebody threatened, like, if you don't follow through with this, like, we're going to kill you and we're going to kill your family. Like, outside of Shanann, like, it's not just going to end with Shanann. Beard Freak says, I think he was being threatened. I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone when it comes to this case. Me too. And I feel like I need to start the live streams with, like, warning you guys, like I kind of did tonight. Like, I'm not a Chris Watts supporter. I just don't think he did this alone. I think this is much deeper. Yeah. You're in the Twilight Zone when you go in the Watts case. It's not just he wanted a life with his mistress. I don't think that that's it at all. Chris went to their friends and stayed the night on Tuesday night. They had pizza. Yeah, he did. It could be that Dave was an officer who said he'd be keeping an eye on the place, and Chris tried to make it look like he had friends because NK and Jim. You mean because NK and Jim were, like, threatening him, or? I think his family was threatened. That might be why he's keeping quiet. I think so too. It's more than just he doesn't want to throw the mistress under the bus because he loves her. Chris was afraid Monday night. He had all the lights on in the house. Yep. I keep going back to that statement by him too. And that's why he kept saying, whoever has them, I hope they come back safe. Yeah. And then that's also why Beard Freak, he said to a friend who called him that he used to work with at the dealership, his friend called him and said, "Oh my God, I heard about your wife and kids. They're missing. What's going on?" And Chris says, "I never should have talked to the media." Now, again, you could take that as he knew he looked bad and that the guilt was oozing out of him. Or you can look at it as that interview on the porch set the people off. And they, now everyone in the world knows what's going on. And there's no way in heck we can return the kids because they're old enough to tell anybody what was going on. Again, who knows? I'm just saying that's how I interpret this. And I feel like if he contacts his friend Dave because he wants extra help, he wants like muscle around because he was threatened. But for some stupid reason, he just doesn't decide to tell CBI the truth and say, "I'm in over my head. I need your help. Please." Instead, he makes comments to them about, "I got this Vivint alert about my garage door being left open, but when Nicole Atkinson came up, it was shut." And he says things to Coder like, "Can we put out an Amber Alert?" All these things where it's like, what are you trying to say? Do you know something? Is there something you need to tell us? I don't know. Linda agrees. He had help. Sketchy. That basement gives me chills. Yeah, this fire stick, holy cow. That's another rabbit hole. I think the girls were still alive when he did the porch interview and he thought they would be coming back, in my opinion. I think so too. I think that it was an attempt for him to just say, like, please bring them back. But really, the people who had them were like, oh, hell no. No way. No way. Now there's no way we can give these kids back because you've just gone on national television and brought even more attention to all this. And they're old enough, they can tell people like, yeah, this strange person had me, or I was with Nicole Kessinger. Again, that's just an opinion, not stating it as fact. But yeah, I just think it's interesting that he had his friend Dave sit outside on Monday night, the same night that he said he was scared and he had all the lights on. And also, Nicole Kessinger is also saying, like, you'll see it in text messages. I was telling him I was afraid. I was afraid. Was she threatened as well? Adrian says spot on. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. They were so little, right? Her just knowing the size of the children. Her and her friend were sick. And what do you know? When you open that hatch and you breathe in these fumes, you get sick. I'm just stating things that we know of. I'm not saying 100% that they're involved, Nicole and Jim, but I just leave that open-ended. All right, so here's the other thing that kind of points me to think that the children, like Tony said, the children, he had thought maybe they were alive at the time of that porch interview. So this is before Nicole Atkinson shows up. Now, remember, the other thing that Nicole Kessinger, not that we can believe every word she says, but we know this from real factual information about their financials, they were in a really rough spot financially, Chris and Shanann. They weren't even keeping their head above water. Let's face it. This isn't victim shaming. It's just calling it as it is and actually leads to more motivation to kind of do this payout with life insurance and sue Anna Darko for this explosion and play with the oil stocks. So he calls a school, and this is something that everyone's always talking about. Like, see, he had already done what he did. This is before the plan falls apart. So he's trying to sell the house. He'd been talking to the realtor. I believe that he was trying to set up for be in a better spot financially. So he was going to get rid of the house. And it says at 8:15 a.m. on Monday, Chris allegedly told the employee of the school that he and his wife were selling their house and their children would not be coming there anymore. So this daycare and school was like $500 a week. Maybe Chris because I don't think the kids were in his plan, even though I think that they were threatened and he was told, if you don't follow through with this, we're going to kill your kids. That's why he wrote that note in North Carolina. A lot of people say, like, see, he withdrew Bella from school. He had already killed her. He had no plans of them going to the school because he killed her. So if you're gonna kill your kid, why would you alert the school that they're not coming in? Like, I don't know. Again, you can argue and try and make it make sense. That's fine, and it very well could make sense that, like, he was trying to get ahead of it so that the school didn't call him looking for them. But then this part here drives me insane. Detective Baumhover said Chris then asked the school employee, "They're not there, are they?" Again, this is before anyone knows that they're missing. So to act like, oh, well, the stuff was falling apart and he was trying to act like he was looking for them. Things weren't falling apart yet. Nicole Atkinson hadn't showed up. The cops weren't at his house. So this, in my opinion, I think you could leave it open as a possibility. I'm not saying that this is exact truth and believe my theory only. I think that this was Chris, again, his coworker, which the coworker admits this in his police interview. His wife owns or runs a daycare. So kids go over to his coworker's house during the day and his wife makes money and watches children all day. This is the same coworker who was at the crime scene before the cops got there, who lied to the cops about why he was there, who had to be re-interviewed because he lied, and who lied numerous times in his police interview, said that him and Chris weren't friends, didn't hang outside of work. Come to find out, we have pictures of him at the Watts house. All this stuff surrounding this specific coworker. But pretty much, I believe that the children were going to stay at the daycare at the coworker's house. Chris was going to save money by taking them out of school. And at this point, Chris drove to the oil sites with the girls in the truck, but somebody intercepted the children until he completed the explosion plan. So at 8:15 in the morning, Chris is kind of in a panic, calls and says to the school they're not going to be going there anymore because he wants to save money. But he also is saying, wanting to know, like, their whereabouts because they had been taken. They're not there, are they? Why would Chris ask the employee that? Again, this is before Nicole Atkinson and the cops are at the house. So why is Chris calling the school and saying they're not there, are they? This kind of leads me to think that somebody else had the children and that, maybe he was told you'll get them back once this explosion takes place. We need you to follow through with your plan. You think so, Girl Fox? I don't know. Thank you. Nadia agrees. It is scary because someone had them. I think so. I really think so. I think NK definitely reeled him in. And I think him losing weight definitely aligns with that as well. Tony agrees. I also thought NK had them, but that makes a lot more sense if someone else had them. It's hard. It's hard to know where everyone fits in, who had them at the time. But to me, why would he call the school and say they're not there? Are they? This is before he had to act like he was looking for them. So had this been after Nicole Atkinson was at the house and looking and saying, like, where is everyone? And he says, oh, they're on a play date. This is before all that. So he doesn't even need to kind of act like, I'm just looking for my kids. This is all before, the plan falls apart. So I just think that that's noteworthy, that this was way before things fell apart. And that's fair. You're way too nice to Chris, giving him the benefit of the doubt. I believe a lot of this theory, the explosion, but I also think he planned it. He said he did, but he doesn't tell the truth often. Yeah, that's the thing is he says things. So what can you believe? Again, I'm not trying to be nice. I'm just saying, why at 8:15 is he acting like he's looking for his kids when it's to the world, no one even knows they're missing yet. Yep, I agree with much of what you come up with. I don't know. I'm not saying that this is, factual and the truth. I'm just wondering, why did he have his friend Dave sit outside his house, who was a police officer, and why is he calling the school before anyone knows they're missing and he's looking for his kids? So those are the things I just would love people to kind of give me your thoughts and opinions. Um, there are so many little things Chris said that support your theory that someone had the kids. There really is. I mean, we go through them in all these other live streams too. Um, so it's not something that I can kind of lay out for you guys here tonight. But if you watch the series one by one, we'll pull out certain things. I don't think he planned it. He wasn't that smart, but he was compliant person, and NK knew about it. I definitely think he planned Shanann's death with them. I think that there's so much to support that he was completely done with her. I just cannot get on board with the kids. I'm sorry, I just can't. And that's not anything that's, showing support to Chris. It's just my feelings, my opinion, my gut instinct. So back to that employee, that coworker whose wife runs a daycare, who said he'd never really hung out with Chris outside of work and was seen at the house in pictures. Um, so Anthony Brown, we went through his interview last time, and he was the one that said he saw Chris and NK in the whatchamacallit, at work, kind of cozying up and very flirty. He said that he thought that Chris was seeing NK. I don't think Anthony Brown is part of these people who is part of this explosion plan. I think he's on the outside. I think it's a very small group that is part of this explosion plan. And yes, I think Troy McCoy is part of it. And yes, we've been explaining it for years. It's very deep. You can check my research out on CDT, the channel, and there's a whole bunch of live streams over there that we've done together. So here, I want to kind of bring the focus back on Troy McCoy and what he knew about things and what he was saying before Shanann was found. This is when the kids are missing, and this is how Troy is speaking to another coworker. Brown said the first time he heard anything about the Watts family, about anything happening to Watts family, was on Tuesday, August 14th, 2018. Brown said he saw on the group email at work that Watts was not coming to work today. Brown said he initially didn't think anything about it. Brown said he and McCoy went to a location to turn on the well when McCoy said something to him about Watts' family had gone missing. Brown thought this was at about 8 a.m. and they were at the Roland 28-4 location. Brown said McCoy told him that Watts was getting ready to do an interview on television about his family missing. Brown said he immediately reactivated his Facebook account. Brown had previously deactivated his account because it was a waste of his time, and started posting the stories he could find about the Watts family and asking everyone he knew to be on the lookout for them. Brown said he and McCoy talked about the situation, and McCoy told Brown that Watts had been having issues with Shanann, and Watts had been sleeping on the couch recently. Brown said he was not aware of any issues Watts was having in his marriage. Brown said McCoy told him that Watts said Shanann had taken off her wedding ring and left it on the counter before she disappeared. Brown said he and McCoy speculated that Shanann had left Watts and she took the girls with her. Brown said they even speculated that Shanann had met someone while she was on one of her business trips for Thrive. Brown said McCoy also told him that Watts and Shanann didn't take any food or clothes or medicine for the girls. So again, this McCoy guy, lies to police, lied to the water truck guy while he was at the crime scene, is bad mouthing Shanann before she's even found deceased. She's a missing person at this point. And McCoy's over there telling Anthony Brown, oh yeah, she was probably cheating on him. It's like she met someone all pregnant and shiz. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, my question is, why is Troy in this mode that he's got to, for one, gossip about someone who's missing that way? It's like he's trying to badmouth her while she's missing. It's like, let's say that he knew more about something. Is he trying to justify what had taken place? Well, she was cheating on him, he's saying to Anthony Brown. You know what I mean? To kind of make it seem justified. Do you see what I'm saying? Again, I'm not saying that that's what's being happening here, but I find it very interesting that they're, the kids and Shanann are missing, and McCoy is over here spinning in another coworker's head that Shanann might have been cheating. Like bad mouthing her. Like, who cares even if she was? She's missing at that point, and so are the kids, and she's pregnant. And yet Troy's over here just bad mouthing the poor woman. And it would be different if Troy didn't lie to the police and need to be re-interviewed. It would be different if he wasn't at the crime scene and then stumbled on while he was there by the water truck guy. It's just another element in all this that is very interesting. Yeah, it's so sad. Shanann and the girls did nothing to deserve this. Right. And she's a missing person at that point, and she's being talked about that way. Yeah, McCoy took off of work Friday too. Some of this I've never heard before, like Chris asking the school if the girls were there. I try my best to kind of point things out that are just, it's all in the detail. Like my one moderator, Mel Max, said, the devil is in the details. And these details to me matter. So, and it's things like this that I just can't really like brush off. Like, oh, yeah, he was supposedly looking for a wrench. Right. Another lie. Yeah, amazing how everyone was off the day after a leak. Yeah. And the leak goes all weekend, and it's an urgent thing that they had to run and get to on Monday morning. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. So again, I'm not saying that, Troy is trying to justify what part he took in all this because Shanann might have been cheating, but to me, it's just an interesting thing to bring up when somebody's missing. Could he have brought it up because he's saying that, maybe she's with that person that she cheated with? Perhaps. All right, what's next? I'll show that one next time. I think the last 10 minutes we'll go through statements that Nicole said that she remembers from see, Caroline, I understand that like it could make it seem like he was concerned, father and hubby, but the girls weren't reported missing yet. That was at 8:15 in the morning. The girls, or that was at 8:15 that he called the school, said they won't be going there anymore, and that they're selling their house. And he says, they're not there, are they? That's before he had to kind of make it seem like he's a concerned husband or father. So if it was after Nicole Atkinson called the cops and the cops were at his house, and then he called and said, they're not there, are they? I would say, well, he's just making it seem like he's looking around for them. But this is before all that. So that's where I kind of like scratch my head. Hi, Dom. Good to see you. I'm not disagreeing. I've just never dove too deep in this theory. What would the coworkers have to gain by helping Chris? So by the way, this coworker that I'm speaking about actually sent Chris an article of a oil tank exploding in Kansas. So when you look at their text message together on Troy's phone, he sent Chris an article of an oil tank exploding. And Chris said something like, "Wow, that's wild," or something. But anyways, what would he have to gain? So any type of work accident that happens, your workplace is kind of subject to being sued, right? So if there was an accident that took place, somebody dies, other people get severely hurt and burned, you sue the company that you're working for and you're rich. So I think that there's monetary gain. Also, Dom, there was life insurance that Shanann had and the kids had that was pretty high. If Chris agreed to go on board with this and other people help him, was he going to pay them money as well? All that could be speculated on. There's even talks of oil stocks being played with. You buy in when the stocks are super low and then they go back up, vice versa. I just think that there's monetary gain for certain people. Again, Troy was also somebody who was trying to find work outside of the oil industry and was told he had a bad attitude. And these are text messages between Chris and Troy that you can read. And he wasn't able to get that job. So he obviously wasn't happy there at Anadarko. He had also filed bankruptcy in the past, a bunch of things. Yeah, money. All comes down to money. No problem, Dom. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you since like the Kurt case. Life insurance was not more than 100K on the 3 though. So her life insurance, which I guess we'll have to go through again on another stream, she had one still in place that was started when she was previously married. That was for her divorced husband, says in the discovery, for $100,000. And then Chris also had life insurance out on her through Anadarko. So there was a good amount of money that could be made just in life insurance. And then, any type of wrongful death lawsuit would have been, millions, because that's what that house explosion got. Yeah, they could have sued Anadarko. Right. And that's what the family of the house that exploded in 2017, they got an undisclosed amount from Anadarko, which I'm assuming was millions and millions. They're all connected in some way, in my opinion. I think so too. Yeah, they would have been rich. And what do you know? Nicole Kessinger is looking up Amber Fry's net worth and Amber Fry's book deal. She still, even after the plan fell apart, she was still hoping to make money somehow. Why was she so adamant about money? Because I think something was dangled in front of her face that she thought she was going to get, and she didn't get it. Can you imagine how much a pregnant woman would have paid out in a lawsuit? Exactly. The headlines would have just been, all over the place. Yeah, exactly. It's all definitely connected. Loads of oil tanks, but one where the leak is where the bodies end up. Too suspicious. Right. Sounds like a bunch of scammers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So this is a composition of every statement in all her interviews that Nicole Kessinger states she remembers happening on Monday, the day that they kind of go missing and everything falls apart. We listened to the first 18 minutes already in another live stream, so I'm not going to play it all over again, but I'll play as much as I can. I only like to go live for like an hour and a half. I can't believe how much time flies, but we'll listen to a little bit of Nicole Kessinger's um, her side of things and how they went down on the day that they were all reported missing. Again, thank you guys all for being here. Really appreciate you guys. We have other things that I pulled up that I want to go through next week. Tomorrow night, I think I want to cover the Idaho 4 case and the trial date that has been set this week at the hearing. And the Watts live streams are usually my extra live stream. So I kind of just throw this one in there in the mix because it's very easy for me to talk about and all that. But
I thought, because he said that they'd had a disagreement, and I was just like, okay, well, I mean, I leave myself.
Told you her cell phone and purse were still there?
I think he did. I don't remember.
What's the significance of that in your mind at that time?
At that point, I thought this woman was really trying to get out of this house.
Okay.
That's what I thought, because he said that they'd had a disagreement, and I was just like, okay, well, I mean, I leave my cell phone at home.
When he said disagreement, did he tell you what it was about, or?
Not at that point. Not at that point. So, again, like, you guys are going to have to check these texts, because it's all, like, my brain feels like a mashed potato right now. But I remember him saying that, and I'm just thinking, like, well, maybe she was in a rush, like, maybe she was just like, I'm going to my friends. I'm leaving my cell phone here because I don't want you calling me. I don't want anyone else calling me. I mean, there are days where, like, when I'm outside of work, I will just shut my phone off. I just do it, and it's, like, my way of getting peace. So to me, that, I mean, like, it was weird that it wasn't even that weird to me that she left her phone just because I leave my phone, but it was weird to me that she left her purse. But knowing the fact that that girl was, like, always on her phone, then, yeah, I guess it is kind of odd.
Like, she lived on her phone, I think,
yeah.
pretty much, is my understanding of her and a phone. So, I don't know if you knew that.
I did.
Until prior to the media stuff, or just from Chris.
I did.
So, did that strike you as odd? But you're thinking maybe she just left.
I just thought she needed to, like, get away from the situation. I mean, that didn't seem that awkward to me, that a couple that is going through a separation would be like, I need to leave. I just need some space. Like,
Let's go back to the phone calls on Monday afternoon.
Yeah, so he's, like, texting me a lot of this information, and I'm starting to kind of freak out. And it's not like I'm freaked out like, oh, she got murdered. I mean, that is not what I thought. It's like, okay, like, the way I looked at this, like, apparently his wife had been gone since midday was when she got, like, reported missing. I didn't know that. Like, the way I looked at this, it was, I got home from work just now. I mean, he didn't say that, but I interpreted, I just got home from work.
I'm just pausing it because Going Postal says if she had insurance, it would have been included on her bankruptcy application. Well, I mean, her ex-husband says that in the discovery that she had an insurance policy still. So I don't know why you're saying if, like, it was proven she still had this insurance policy. So I don't know, much about bankruptcy, never filed it before. But I don't know what to tell you. The ex-husband signed a signed affidavit in the discovery, a sworn affidavit that says, yes, she had a life insurance policy. So I don't know. I just want to, do I have to play that interview and read through it on another one?
And my family is not here. So when we're texting for, like, a few hours, like, the cop thing was kind of weird, but he's like, Nikki insisted they call the cops. Nikki insisted they call the cops. And I'm like, okay, and I'm just trying to figure out, well, like, what role does this woman play in this situation? Like, is she...
Did you know who she was?
No, I don't know any of his people. Like, this has been pretty, like, tight wrapped for a while, which is probably a really good thing. But anyways, I didn't know, like, who she was.
This has been tight wrapped for a while, and probably a good thing. I thought this was only a 6-week affair. And thank you, Lisa, for renewing your membership.
And so, like, I started asking him, I was like, well, where do you think your wife is at? And he's like, I think she'll be back tonight. Like, I think she's, like, out with somebody. And he was telling me that they had a disagreement. So I was like, well, I remember telling him, I was like, you should make sure that you have wait a minute. No. So all that happened, and then it starts getting kind of laid out. And I remember we talked for text for a while, and part of this conversation, and then it moved to the phone. I remember telling him, because he was like, I think she'll just be back tomorrow. I think she's just going to be gone for the night, like with a friend, you know? And
Did
like,
he name the friend?
No, he didn't. And like, and because I don't think he made it sound like he didn't know like what friend's house she would be at. And I remember talking to him, and I was like, well, maybe it's that Nikki girl. And he's like, well, Nikki called the cops, so why would she be at Nikki's house? I'm like, I don't know, kind of throws her off the trail of where she's at, you know? And it's like, it sounds kind of weird, but it's like, he really...
Thank you, Jesse. That makes sense. A bankruptcy will not liquidate a term life policy because the creditors are only interested in mature assets. Right. A life insurance policy is only for if, you die. So when you're filing bankruptcy, I mean, there's no asset for the bankruptcy to take because you're not dead yet. Does that make sense? Is that how it's explained a little bit, Jesse?
He made this sound like this woman was just like upset, left the house. And that was probably what he thought happened to her. And so I didn't really put too much like...
Did he tell you the kids were missing as well?
Yes, I knew. I mean, which made sense to me because I was like, well, if you were at work all day... I mean, he didn't tell me he got home early. He didn't say that to me. So, I mean, it made sense. Like, if she's going to leave, they should probably go with her. And so... I don't know. I feel like I wish I should have like processed all of this earlier, but I just don't feel like when one of my friends is gone, I'm like, oh my God.
Okay. So we can move past that. What else?
On Monday night, so a couple things. I told you he had like texted me, and then at the end of the night, he had called, or I had called. I think he called me, but either way, we were on the phone with each other. And like at some point when we were on the phone, he was like, do you want to FaceTime? And I remember I was laying in bed, and I was just like, you know what? Okay, let me turn on the light. And I remember I turned on the light, and we FaceTimed. And when we FaceTimed, he didn't really say much. Like, it was almost kind of awkward. I don't even know why I didn't think of this earlier, but it was very short, too. It was super brief. And
like,
I remember...
what's short?
What?
What is short? Like a couple of minutes or 30 minutes?
Oh, no, I bet it was only probably like less than 5 minutes. I think it was only like a couple of minutes.
Okay.
And I think we were like talking a little bit, but he was laying down on a mattress that didn't have any sheets on it. And I was like, okay. So I was thinking like, well, maybe he's in bed. I don't know what's up. But I remember asking him like, where's your sheets, And he's like, oh, I washed them. And then this is the part I don't remember if this sentence right here came in this FaceTime conversation or if it came in a phone conversation prior to the FaceTime conversation, but regardless, this next sentence came on Monday night, and I'm so sorry that I cannot always remember chronological every little detail.
That's okay, it's understandable.
There's so much. But I remember he was saying that he was cleaning the house to try to keep busy, to take his mind off of things. And this was on the phone. And
Absolutely, Dom. She would call the cops with the most random, pointless things she remembers and acts like she's giving them literal gold. Yes. And this kind of leads me to think that she was given some sort of immunity deal or some sort of deal where she felt kind of obligated to give them good stuff to kind of hold her end, even though she was more involved than she wanted to lead on. And, all this stuff that's coming in on the phone interviews is, weeks and days after the crime took place. So all this stuff would have been so important to hear right away. Her first interview with FBI when they had the hidden mic and they were interviewing her then. None of this stuff is brought up at all there. Her interview with her father the next day in the headquarters with CBI, none of this stuff is mentioned there. And then all of a sudden she comes out with this stuff like, yeah, the sheets, he was sitting and talking to me and the sheets were off and he told me they smelled. All this stuff is just, hearsay. They didn't find any sign of death on any of these sheets or in the house. So all this stuff is kind of to make it seem like she was giving them information when she really wasn't, in my opinion. Yes, what was the bombshell evidence? That's where I'm so confused on. Where is the bombshell evidence? US, good to see you. Why did they not give NK a lie detector test? So 9 months you've been a member. Thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate your comments. I never even heard them offer it to her. Like, would you be interested in taking a polygraph? No. In fact, they said something about they might have to take her cell phone, and she was all like, I need it for work. It was a problem. And we'll go into the other thing that she kind of said in that first interview too with FBI that's kind of eyebrow raising in our next live stream. But yeah, that's why I think that there was some agreement made off of audio, off of the record. And that's why she wasn't asked, like, will you take a lie detector test? Because she was already being protected and treated as like a witness for the prosecution. So I think that, and she breaks her SIM card. It's unbelievable. Yeah, her dad had no business in the interrogation room. I didn't know he was married. And I was like, oh, you're a dad. That's so cute. Right. It's gross. There's a bunch of YouTube channels that say they have proven she didn't get immunity. Well, there was no no investigation that went further. So I don't know what channels are saying it's proven, because there's really nothing in this case that's been proven. But if she was given an immunity, that would only withstand if she wasn't caught lying in this kind of immunity statement. But nobody really checked her for her lies because he signed the plea deal and everything went away. The investigation ended. So they stopped investigating her and her claims, and she wasn't being protected anymore because the plea deal took place. And that's why you hear her ask, her father asks, if he signs a plea deal, does this all go away? And then in her text messages with Kobach, she mentions, if he signs a plea deal, does the investigation end? So I think that if she was given an immunity deal, that she was also told, this deal only withstands if, we don't catch you in some lies, or if nothing comes back that's suspicious against you. And I think that she started realizing, like, my deal might not go through, so he needs to sign this plea deal so that they stop this investigation. And thank you so much, Pizza Chemist, for the 5 memberships, and welcome to those 5 new members. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, she's always lying about something. I agree, Princess Megan Elsa. She got a PR even before going to an interview. Yeah, there's something. She was put on the state's, thank you, Florida Bass Fishing. I appreciate that. And I'm so glad you're here listening still. She was put on the state's witness list. So she absolutely was going to be a witness for the prosecution. In fact, in her interview that we have on camera, where she's wearing the gray long sleeve shirt, she says something about talking to her friend, Charlene. She says, I didn't tell her that I was a witness or anything. So, I mean, she openly admits and says it on the record. And we know from the discovery files that she was a witness for the state. So she was going to work with the prosecution. Now, would the immunity have really followed through if the investigation continued? And Tammy says, we weren't done with our investigation. We weren't done with our interviews. She might have been cornered and been like, you told us this, but we just found out this. So this immunity deal that we talked about, null and void. Like, you're being investigated now. But that didn't happen because the plea deal signed, everything ends. So that's my take on it. I think she was told, like, give us everything you got, make yourself a worthy witness. And that's why she starts calling in with all these, I remembered something more, I remembered something more. And it's all just BS. It's all just pointless. So she was not put in witness protection. I don't know if people are getting immunity mixed with witness protection, but witness protection is only for people who testify at a trial. There was no trial, therefore no witness protection.
And it was kind of late when he was doing it. And, like, I didn't honestly think that much about it originally because that man is always cleaning. Like, he's very, very, like, organized, meticulous, clean individual. Like, he's the type of guy that will, like, vacuum his whole house one week, and if there's rooms that don't get used, he'd vacuum again the next week just because it's, like, part of his routine.
Okay.
So the fact that he's, like, cleaning to kill time and he take his mind off things did not seem like a super red flag to me. Because I was like, okay, well, that's what he does. He just, like, on his days off, like, he organizes his basement or he, like, cleans his garage. It's what he does.
Okay.
And, so anyways, so that didn't seem at all, like, the norm for me. But something that just kind of, like, dawned on me last night as he made the comment directly after that. He said, I had to wash the kids' sheets. He was like, they smell. And I was thinking about that last night, and I'm like, this man keeps that house so clean. That's like the cleanest house I've ever seen. And I'm like, this man keeps that house so clean. Why would his kids' sheets smell bad?
And you think this was Monday night? What time do you think it was Monday night?
Oh, God, I don't even know. I almost wish you guys would show me my phone.
So I'm going to...
So he's asking her to give like details, like when exactly. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I wish you guys would show me my records. Like, why? So that you could get like ahead of this investigation and kind of, you know, she was wanting her stuff from them so that she can keep her lies straight. And her suddenly remembering that the sheets, that Chris said the sheets smell. This is after the district attorney has come out with the narrative that everybody died in the house, which he goes back on after the plea deal is signed and says, oops, actually, no, the kids left alive. So at this point, when she's calling and saying, I remembered stuff, this is after it's already been said by the district attorney, who she's going to be a witness for at this point, at this trial, if it takes place, that all the everyone died in the house. So suddenly, you know, weeks later, she's calling Kobach and saying like, yeah, you know, this and that. I think she's painting the narrative the kids died at home in bed.
I'm going to read off your phone calls for Monday and Tuesday, starting...
No, it's on Monday.
Okay, so...
Monday night.
Monday night, you guys had... we talked about a phone call yesterday, but you guys had a phone call Monday night. It looks like he called you. It was 48 minutes and 57 seconds. It was at 9:48 p.m. that he called you. So that would take us to about 10:35. And then there's another call on Monday. It's for 51 minutes and 25 seconds. It looks like, I'm not sure looking at this who called who, but it looks like you called him. And that was at 11:09 p.m. That lasted 51 minutes. So that takes us to midnight. And then there's another phone call where he calls you. So we're now into midnight, you know, Tuesday morning. It's a 30-minute phone call that lasts until 12:38 a.m. And then after 12:38 a.m., there's a 2-minute and 44-second phone call that lasts that starts at 1:12 a.m. It's 2 minutes and 44 seconds. So
I would almost, this is just me, but I would go get my text messages with him from that night, and I would like sync them up to that like time frame because there was texting in between that. So I think what happened is he called me on that first call, and then there's that gap between the first call and the second call. In that gap, that was when we FaceTimed for a few minutes, and that was when I got up out of bed because I was just having trouble sleeping, and I was like, I went and did laundry. That's what I did. I went like I just put some clothes in the dryer, and then I think I called him back, and then we continued to talk. So that little gap right there between those two big phone calls at the very beginning of the night, I mean, not the very beginning of the night, but the big ones, at the first two. So in between that gap, there's like a quick FaceTime.
So you think that 2 minute and 44 second is the FaceTime?
The one at the very end?
Yeah. Well, so there's
I don't even think the FaceTime's on there.
Okay,
the FaceTime occurred in between those two big phone calls. That
okay. Okay.
Because it was like one big phone call, and then there should have been there's a FaceTime, and in the FaceTime short, it's only a few minutes, and then there's probably just a few more minutes. And that's probably.
So there's a few more calls on Tuesday. So 112 is the 2 minute and 44 second call. That lasts till approximately 1:14, and then there's a long gap until 1:50. So another 45 or 35 minutes, and then there's a 7-minute phone call. That phone call lasts till 1:58 a.m. and then there's a 10-second phone call at 2:07 a.m. followed by. I think he calls you and maybe leaves a voicemail or something, or you don't pick up. So there's a 10-second call. And then directly after that, there's a 10-minute and 24-second phone call.
Okay. So I'm talking about the two at the very beginning of
the two long
really
ones.
Long one.
And is that when he's talking about the kids' sheets?
With the sheet. Okay. So yes. I will help you line this up. Like, I almost want to just come in there and like drop and drag all of my texts to where they were going.
And you know what? We may meet and do that here coming early next week.
Yeah, well, all those phone calls at the very end of the night, that was me freaking out. Like, if you look at my text, a lot of that was like, I can't sleep, I'm really scared, where's your family? That was like me freaking out, and him calling to like try to reassure me, or me calling him like, please talk to me, I'm super scared, where's your family? Like, those little ones at the very end of the night are...
Now, the thing about her texting him, I'm scared, I'm freaking out, where's your family? You know, that's interesting because she's saying like, and you'll see it in the text messages, you'll see. So she knows that this stuff's going to get read. So is that why she's acting like she doesn't know where the family is? And she's having it on record so that when they do investigate and they say like, oh, look, she was asking where the family was. So she must not have known. You know what I mean? Like, were they just staged text messages from Nicole to Chris, acting like, I have no idea, you know, where's your family? I don't know.
Or me not being able to sleep and trying to get him to like talk to me about like, and just, I guess, making sure everything was okay. So those like real late ones, and that's why they're all kind of like sporadic. Because I'd be up for like an hour, and then I'd fall asleep for like 15 minutes, and then I would like wake up and start stressing again and try to call him back. Like, so that's why they're all these like little big ones.
So yesterday we talked about Tuesday was mainly text messages regarding your confrontation about his wife being pregnant.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
It is, and I mean, I guess those phone calls were on Tuesday morning, but for me, it was still Monday night. So I was talking to you guys last night. That's how I referred to it, because I hadn't like gone to bed yet.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. No, that makes sense to me. Okay, so
I guess those technical.
Good point, S. Hockett, because she did say that. She's like, I wasn't really alarmed because a lot of people, or, you know, even I like to turn my phone off and just take a break. And I just thought that she needed to get away. Like, this woman just needed to take a break and take a time out. And so she went to a friend's house for a little bit. But then now she's saying she's freaking out. She wants to know where your family is and all that. So good point. There's so many contradictions. She thought it was totally understandable for her to stay the night at a friend's house. So which is it? Is it understandable that she's at a friend's house for the night, or is it you're freaking out and you're wondering where the family is, and you couldn't sleep? Hi, Angie. Good to see you.
Technically, we're on Tuesday, but according to my daily sleep schedule, that was still my Monday night.
Right. So the last phone call with him on Monday, well, it basically starts into Tuesday. It takes you all the way to Tuesday. It actually ends like basically at midnight on Monday, August 31st. So his wife gets home sometime at about 2 o'clock on that morning. So
no, she got home on Sunday.
Pardon me, Sunday. She got home on Sunday. So did you ever talk to him late on Sunday night?
No, we were on the phone, but I mean, I had to let him go and get up and go to work.
That was the 9 to 11 call it was like a 2-hour phone call we talked about yesterday on Sunday night from 9 p.m. to 11.
And that would have been the last time that I talked to him until the work day on Monday.
And that's when he texts you at like 3:45.
No, we talked during work. Remember I told you he like randomly texted me throughout the day at work, but it was just like bullshit conversation.
Okay.
It wasn't like anything.
No substance. Okay. So the most important thing that you've said here is this Monday night phone call. He doesn't have any sheets on the bed, and he said his children's sheets were.
You know what I find interesting that I never really, people have always pointed out she wore long sleeves to all her police interviews. But even look here, she's got her hands like tucked into her hoodie. So like we can't even or the officers can't even examine her like fingernails and stuff, or not even her fingernail, her hands in general. Like if there was markings or scratches or anything like that on her hands, like why does she have her hands in her hoodie pocket?
Were smelly.
They smell.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's get back to that because I feel like you and me are kind of getting off track. Yep. So go to that first long phone call on Monday night was, I think, when he told me that. I don't think he told me that in the FaceTime text. I mean, in the FaceTime conversation. I think he told me that in the first conversation where he was like, their sheets smell. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why? Like, you keep such a clean house. Like, why would your kids' sheets stink? And, like, it just didn't really click.
Did you confront him? Did you confront him why the sheets smelled, or did you inquire why?
No, I didn't even ask.
Do you know his children were quite young, and I think one of them was still in diapers. Would have that been a potential reason, that one of them had an accident, or did it seem like that's not what he was talking about?
I don't know. I mean, he didn't elaborate.
Okay.
He was just like I said, he always cleans the house, but even if his kids were to be in diapers and like have accidents, like I just feel like the man keeps his house so clean, and she does too. They both must have to like coexist in a house that clean. But like, I just don't see anything in that house like smelling.
All right. So yeah, she says they both keep their house so clean. Like talking about Shanann, like she really does know her, and we know from her phone activity that she absolutely was cyber stalking her. No doubt in my mind. So I didn't realize how far we'd gone. This is almost at 2 hours. We can listen to more of her statement about Monday on another live stream. I think that we're going to conclude it for tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me and for being open-minded and being so kind in chat. Again, I'm not saying that my theories are 100% accurate or the truth. I'm just showing you guys a different perspective outside of what the mainstream media and outside of what the lying, I always say this, lying district attorney, because he's a liar, and he's changed his own theories on this case numerous times as well. So to actually know the truth, it's very hard in this case. And I think that that's what sucks everybody in. Chris is a liar. NK is a liar. District Attorney Rourke is a liar. So very hard to kind of know like what foot to kind of stand on in this case, where everything falls. Maybe he thought it would help when explosion happened. They blame Shanann, more reason to. I think, you know, it's just much deeper than he wanted to be with his mistress. That's what I think. So again, thank you guys for being here. We do Watts live streams once a week. Other nights we cover more current cases. So please join me on my other live streams outside of Watts. I really appreciate you guys all being here for my Watts live streams, but I do dig into other cases too. And yeah, I like talking about current cases too. I'd love for you guys to join me in other rabbit holes as well. So hit that like button if you haven't. Please consider subscribing. Hang out with us again tomorrow night if you want. I think, like I said, we're going to cover Idaho 4. And yeah, well, I appreciate seeing you, Valerie, and everyone else who joined. And yeah, we'll talk very soon. I haven't created my new outro yet. I'm going to do so very shortly. And thank you to everyone who donated. I appreciate you guys and those who joined the membership, and Pizza Chemist who donated 5 memberships. And yeah, just stay tuned and we'll talk again very shortly. And for those who joined a little later, like rewind and give me your thoughts. Like, why did he ask his policeman Dave to sit outside the house on Monday night, the night that he said he couldn't sleep and left all the lights on and he was scared? Why did Troy McCoy tell the other coworker that he, before Shanann was even found deceased, that he thought Shanann was cheating? Give me your thoughts. And thank you so much, Florida Bass Fishing, and all my other moderators. You guys are awesome. And I really appreciate the words of encouragement. Again, I get a lot of comments that are like discouraging when I cover Watts, because I do follow my own thoughts and opinions and not that of the district attorneys. But I will say that the support I receive from you guys, especially the live chat, it keeps me going. And, I feel comfortable sharing my thoughts and opinions with you guys because the live chat is just very supportive and open-minded. It's the replay viewers who don't really know me who are like, you're a Watts supporter. No, I'm not. I just feel like there's much more to this case. So we'll talk soon next week on the Watts and then tomorrow night on other cases. So good night, guys.